What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the channel. We're in for an absolute banger of a video here today, myself alongside the living legend in regards to baseball content here on YouTube, that being GiraffeNeckMarc. Marc and I break down, share an in-depth discussion on all the moves summarized the Mets have made this offseason and overall grading their offseason this past year and what an offseason has been, to put it lightly. So make sure you guys stay all the way until the end of the video, find all the deets and all of our thoughts on all their moves and their overall grade for the Mets in this past offseason. And if you guys end up enjoying this kind of Mets content and want to see more great Mets content like this, make sure to smash that like and subscribe button, share this video with your friends, on the notification bell, all those great things. We're so close to 6K subs, guys, so please make sure to smash those buttons if you like more content like this, and also help us get a 500 likes in today's video. If you can, definitely give some support to my man Marc over here. You guys all know him by now, but if you don't, make sure to subscribe to him, help him get to 200K subs by the season start. He's so close there already, so make sure to hit those buttons, guys. Thank you again. Now let's get right into today's video. All right, guys, thank you all so much for checking out. Here we have the living legend again himself, that being in GiraffeNeckMarc. Second appearance here. Thank you so much for taking the time, Marc. It really does mean a lot. We're in for a really big discussion today, but before I go any further, how are you doing?
Doing well, man. Glad to be back on the channel. Been seeing that you're killing it out there, so keep spreading that news for the Mets fans. I'm loving it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, a lot has changed. I think last time that we talked just over a month ago, just hit past 1K. Now we're getting closer to 6K. You're on the road to 200K as well. It's insane. A lot of fun times for us Mets fans and baseball fans as a whole. But when I thought of the offseason, it rounding up, waiting for Zach Scott to give us the approval that, hey, yes, we're done with all of our major moves for the most part. We might be doing some more minor league signings, but prior to that, it looks like that we have the roster kind of solidified heading into the season. I was like, all right, I got to hit Marc up again, and we got to get this done. Your initial thoughts before we just break down everything on the offseason. How hectic has it been? Have you as a fan ever experienced something like this before?
Yeah, I mean, like the last time that the Mets had an offseason even similar to this feels like it was like the 2006 year, or I don't even necessarily know if it was exactly 2006, but when we got Delgado, Beltran, yep, Pedro, we had a huge offseason then, and we also had Reyes and Wright there. So we had our core, we got the pieces around it. We made a pretty good run. Feels like we're going to be on the same path this year. So I'm excited. I'm pumped.
Yeah, no, me too. I mean, this is by far the biggest offseason I've experienced as a fan, because I didn't start following the Mets religiously until like 6 years ago. And then really, ironically, it was their 2015 run, but it wasn't a bandwagon or anything. I always was a Mets fan. I just didn't follow baseball a lot. And then halfway through the summer, my cousin told me, he's like, hey, you need to watch this game, this series against the Nationals. I was like, why? I'm like, if they win the series, then they're first in the division, like forever. I'm like, oh, okay. So I watch it, and then, I haven't skipped a beat ever since.
Of course.
When you're talking about additions and subtractions, the Mets did not skip a beat. They had 28 players that parted ways with them, either through trades or free agencies or just cutting them, whatever it may be. And then they have 34 additions, which is insane, because if you look at what they did the offseason prior, they had a total of 21 additions versus 15 subtractions. So just round that all up in your head, try to get that through. And then when you look at the current 40-man, there's currently around 18 newly acquired players on the 40-man roster, this is according to Fangraphs. So just jaw-dropping as it is, I feel like we've been on the tips of our toes, at the edge of our seats this entire offseason. We have not been able to breathe. Finally we are, but oh my god, are these moves insane. So just on the forefront there, what is your reaction to seeing that amount of additions and subtractions?
Yeah, I mean, you put it in comparison really well, because when you said 34, I was like, man, that sounds like a lot. And then I was like, but maybe it's not. Maybe I don't know what they've, done in the past technically. And it's like, oh no, it is a lot. The Mets have definitely been super active this offseason, making some really good moves. I like a lot of the guys that we've brought in. I think that we definitely have a clear path of what we're trying to do, which is really nice, which is build a championship team. And the pieces that we're getting are definitely going to help us get there.
Absolutely, yeah. And then when you want to go even further, this is according to Spotrac, the Mets this offseason were 5th in all the MLB in regards to spending. They spent just over $94 million in regards to free agents, and also looking at arbitration avoided contracts, they went for a total of 165.5 plus million. So they were spending big time. Obviously, you had teams like the Dodgers and the Padres and the Jays ahead of them, but still be top 5 in baseball in the offseason. The Mets are top dogs now, I would say, for the most part in years going forward. But let's start off with the bullpen, for instance, because this is something that still today is a little controversial, because us Mets fans, at least at the time of recording this, would like them maybe add another arm or two. There are a lot of guys that they unfortunately were not able to land, mainly because of the close closer role, as we know. But even with putting that aside, when you look at their additions here, just a couple guys that first come to mind, that being Sean Reed-Foley, Yennsy Diaz. These are two guys that came from the Jays as part of that 3 prospect trade with Steven Matz going the other way. Jacob Barnes on a 1-year $750K contract that could bring some depth to this bullpen as well, previously with the Angels. Then you have Stephen Tarpley, and Tarpley's a guy that I actually like. If you can get his control down, he has some nasty stuff. I'm not sure how it's going to transition, but the Mets really have a great analytics group now. I'm really excited about him. They picked him up as a DFA pickup from the Marlins this offseason. And then we had these 3 that I really want to deep dive further with you, the main guys, that being starting off with Sam McWilliams. This guy I think is probably the biggest wild card for the Mets in the bullpen, and they're banking on a lot from him. And he, as a guy that only played a handful of games in AAA this past season and in AA, had a total of around a 4.1 ERA, but an 8 ERA in a handful of games in AAA, and a career 3.85 ERA as a starting pitcher in the minors, really playing just AA for the most part. This guy at 6'7", 25 years of age. Looks like that there's a lot of potential with him, to the point that the Mets actually gave him a major league contract, which wasn't very heard of a guy of what you have seen him do at his career at this point. But the Mets went all in on him, landing him a 1-year $750K contract. So what are your initial thoughts on Sam McWilliams, and what do you think that he will bring to the Mets? And do you think that this is a sneaky good pickup for them? Because from everything that I've seen, I might even break it down to further video, analytically speaking, this could be a gem for them.
Yeah, no, he's got some really good stuff. And anybody who comes from the Rays organization, I feel like is someone that you should be interested in, because at some point that team had an interest in him, meaning that there's something good there. I mean, they're just one of the smartest organizations in baseball. So I'm excited to see what he's got. I don't necessarily know if he is going to be on the team out of camp, just because the bullpen is kind of crowded with guys who are just getting paid a little bit more. And I don't think those guys are going to start in the minors. And especially like grabbing guys like Lucchesi and Peterson now, maybe one of them starts in the minors. It's going to be tough to say, but I think that there's definitely something that you can work with there. Like you said, huge dude, huge frame, and analytically speaking, there is stuff that can become a really plus reliever. So I'm interested to give him a shot. Again, like the Mets, all the moves that they're making, they're smart moves. These are moves that the Mets wouldn't have made in the past. Taking a risk on a guy who has no major league time, but has the stuff. That's just not a move we make in the past, and we're making it now, and I like it.
I think from everything that I read on him, it was like, okay, this guy, maybe there's a lot more to this story than I initially thought. And when I first saw the contract for a major league deal for him, I'm like, oh, that's a little bit of a head scratcher. But yeah, a lot of potential upside with him. The Rays organization, I think the Mets, in regards to plenty of their moves this offseason, but especially a guy like McWilliams, stands out of very Rays, very A's-esque, if you will, and really trying to get the most out of guys where maybe you didn't have any expectations for them going into the season, but they can utilize them the right way, know their advantages, their disadvantages, and really try to take full advantage of their tool set. And I see that no different here with McWilliams. So I'm really excited for him. But then the other two guys, the biggest names that the Mets picked up in the bullpen, that being Aaron Loup, who they signed to a 1-year deal, $3 million. The 33-year-old had a 2.52 ERA, and in his career has a 3.38 ERA. And Trevor May, the biggest piece, the first big move of the offseason, was the first actual video I did here on the channel on December 1st. They land him on 2 years, $15.5 million. The 31-year-old reliever, just such a great guy. I hope I can do content with him sometime, because he's awesome with his personality. 3.86 ERA in the short season at a 4.44 career ERA. This is a guy that really was looking dominant at times with some nasty stuff. Originally starting pitcher, moved to a reliever throughout his career with the Twins. So what do you think that Loup and May are going to bring, and how do you feel about that being the biggest pieces the Mets have acquired to address the bullpen this offseason for the most part?
Yeah, I mean, Loup is really good. He took a good step forward last year with the Rays, like you said, and the strikeouts have, while they were down last year, I mean, short season, they were up with San Diego the year before, and I know with the Blue Jays, he hadn't had great success, but it looks like he's figured something out a little bit, so that's good for us to get a lefty in there. And again, like left-handed pitcher with the, one batter rule gone now, you have to pitch to 3. There's a little more flexibility there. I know a lot of people want Justin Wilson back. This guy's going to be just as good. Like, we have nothing to worry about with Aaron Loup. And then Trevor May is a guy who you probably just kind of slept on a little bit because he was playing in Minnesota for a team that doesn't get a lot of national coverage. A lot of people probably know him more because of what he's done online streaming, which is funny, but you should know him as a reliever. He's absolutely filthy. He's back with his pitching coach, Jeremy Hefner. I expect him to be a big leverage guy for us. I mean, having him, I know Lugo's hurt. He's probably going to slot into Lugo's spot right now is what I'm thinking. Him, Lugo, Diaz, Betances. I mean, those 4 right there, and Familia, even if you want to include him, like it's a good 5-headed monster with some really powerful arms.
Now let's get on to the rotation, because this was huge for the Mets. As we know, the rotation absolutely killed them past season. As we know, with outside DeGrom, there's literally nothing there between Stroh opting out and all these injuries happening. Thor with Tommy John, he looks like he'll be back probably right around early June for the upcoming season. but their moves have been phenomenal. I love everything about them for the most part. Starting off with Joey Lucchesi. His mom follows me on Twitter now. Shout out to her. Michelle, I don't know if she found me from my live stream on him or whatever. I thought that was awesome. But he was part of the 3-team trade.
Padres and was it the Pirates? Yeah, the Pirates.
Yeah, Pirates. I thought so. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, that was a solid move for them, but they get the 27-year-old has a 4.2 career ERA, and he only has a cup of coffee in the league currently. He didn't do much of anything with the Padres this past year, spent time in the minors as well because he didn't have a great start, but overall brings a lot, has a nasty curve. His stuff in my mind would be perfect for the bullpen, so I'm going to want to know your thoughts in a minute on him. But then you get Jordan Yamamoto, another guy who I actually was a solid fan of during his time in Miami. Really burst on the scene his rookie year. This past season didn't have a great year to say the least. He was high up in there in an ERA, but the 24-year-old has a 6.2 career ERA, doesn't even have 100 innings under this belt. He's still just getting started. He's going to be competing for that 5th spot along with Lucchesi and Peterson. But then you have Taijuan Walker, who I'm so happy the Mets landed, especially after losing out on the Bauer sweepstakes that we all know by now. Walker, in my mind, is a great fit on this short-term deal. I guess 2 years, 20 mil, and that's literally exactly what he got. And then there's also that 30-year option as well. So a really smart structured contract for the Mets for a guy that just came off of Tommy John, was out the past really 2 years, but in 2020 had a great outing with both the Mariners and the Jays. As we know, posted a 2.7 ERA and a 3.84 career ERA to date. And then Carlos Carrasco, Cookie, part of that Lindor trade. It's easy to overlook it because nothing is going to highlight that deal more than Lindor himself, but Cookie is no slouch. This guy has done it all. He's been so consistent in his career. Him and Kluber were dominant for the past decade, and if you look at his numbers here, even still at the age of 33, multiple years left on his contract, I think he's going to be huge for them as another middle of the rotation guy for the Mets. A 2.9 ERA in the short season, it has a 3.77 career ERA, was a 2019 AL Comeback Player of the Year, knowing what he came back from leukemia, and same thing in 2020 Player's Choice Comeback of the Year. So what are your initial thoughts on all of their moves here for the rotation? Are you happy about it? Are you not feeling too comfortable? Let me know what you think.
Oh, no, I'm feeling great about the rotation. Like, I feel like we definitely have a top rotation in the league. It's not the Dodgers. Let's be honest. It's not the Dodgers, no. But we're right in the same category with the Nationals and some of the other teams that are up there with some of the best rotations. I mean, the depth that we got is really nice because that's something that we've lacked recently is just depth with our starting rotation. Someone goes down, usually Corey Oswalt comes up. And let's be honest, Corey Oswalt just doesn't have much for us. He's, a good emergency option, but now our emergency option are legitimate starting pitchers in Major League Baseball, which is really nice. I like the Taijuan Walker signing a lot. I think he's a guy that is only going to get better. I think that he's going to be another year removed from Tommy John surgery. His arm's going to be getting stronger. The stuff looked really good last year. I think that's a great signing. And it's going to end up probably being a good budget move that the Mets made where it's like, oh, wow, you only paid this much for him? Love it. And again, he's our 4 or 5 starter at the, at the moment. So it's not like we need him to be a Cy Young. He can do what he did last year and we're getting insane value for him. Lucchesi, I thought was a really solid pickup. He's a guy, like you said, with the curve, has a good pitch. I don't necessarily know if he's better like as a bullpen arm or if he's better as like that open swing man kind of thing. Like maybe get 3 innings out of him. And that's kind of the same thing with Yamamoto. Yamamoto just doesn't really throw very hard, but he does throw like 6 different pitches. So that's something where if you can find the right spot for him, I think that's good. And again, as one of our emergency guys, that's a pretty good option as an emergency starter right now. I love Carlos Carrasco. I think that move is just super underrated because of course he came over with Lindor and Lindor is the big name there, but Carlos Carrasco is like a top 25 pitcher in the league. And the Mets just added him to a rotation that already was pretty solid. So Cookie's going to be a really, really good pickup, I think, for the Mets. That's going to be one where, like, I think a lot of Mets fans don't really appreciate how good of a pitcher he has been. And they look at some of the numbers of recent times, especially like the year where he did have like the leukemia diagnosis or whatever, and think like, oh, maybe he's just not that good. It's like, no. He's legit. Like he's really good. He's going to be our number 2 this year. Like that's kind of the way you got to think of it, is that he's going to be a really good guy to have behind DeGrom. I just like all the moves on the rotation. Depth has, like I said, always been an issue for us, and we addressed that. Peterson is going to be the guy that I hope gets the number 5 spot. That's just because of the, how young he is and what he showed us last year. I think he deserves it right now out of spring training, but that's yet to be seen until the games get played. But it's a really good problem to have that we're in right now.
I was so happy with all these rotation moves because, again, it was the biggest thing with the Mets going the offseason. It's not just about possibly landing those big names. As we know, they didn't land the names that we all originally thought they would, them showing interest in all these different players, and then they land with a select few. But the depth moves were key for them because if you want to have a winning type championship caliber team, not just for making playoffs, but having deep runs, you need to make sure that you're prepared for inevitable injuries, guys that are going to constantly be tested for COVID in the upcoming season. You're guaranteed to see some guys probably be out for a couple games naturally for a protocol or whatever it's going to be. So having this kind of depth in the rotation in my mind is absolutely tremendous. You're going to have them kind of do a dogfight for that fifth spot. I think Peterson is still the guy to beat there, but Lucchese's not far off. They might even roll with Lucchese knowing that he does have more experience than Peterson. They don't necessarily want to put too much pressure on him because he looked great in the shortened season, but again, it was just a small taste. It's a similar situation to an extent with any other player that really bursts on the scene, like in a different situation like Pete, for instance, where he was just otherworldly his rookie year, and then it kind of came back at least in the first couple weeks of the season in 2020, where pitchers really know how to attack him right now and they know how to make their adjustments. I think hitters will do the same with Peterson given his lack of experience at the MLB level, which could very well have Lucchese favored there. So it's going to be an interesting dogfight. Again, he's a guy in my mind, Lucchese, I could even see maybe not just being a swingman, but even being a opener, if you will, because I know that the Mets have toyed with the idea with Loop, and he said no problem. I loved his response to that. I thought that was great. Whether it's a Loop or Lucchese, any type of those lefties for a couple innings, then you just go from there. I think that's not a bad option as well. So depth wise, the Mets basically have two rotations instead of one, which is nothing wrong whatsoever. Best rotation depth I think that they've had, and you can probably agree. I think you actually said this in a recent video. Maybe it was the Walker signing video where you said it was probably their best depth since the 2015 run, when you had guys like Colon, Nice going to the bullpen.
And even like Dylan G, I think, was still on the team at that time. And he just kind of got pushed to the side because, like, we don't need you. Like, I think he was hurt too, but it was like, even if he came back, it's like, we don't need you because we have 5 guys and we have the 2 guys in the pen. And that's like how you build a championship team. You look at the Dodgers, you look at the Astros, you look at the Nationals, you look at any of the teams that have been winning recently. They have their core that's super strong, but then as soon as one guy goes down or someone's having a bad day, someone else is there to step up. And right now the Mets have a ton of guys that can fill in at any moment and step up.
I think we hit the nail on the head for everything regarding the rotation. Getting on to the infield, and this was something when I just did my research to make sure I have everything right. They have Jose Martinez as an outfielder. I think he's probably best foot as a first baseman. This guy, let's be real, his glove is, it's funny when I think about Jose Martinez, a great pickup, might I add, for the Mets. They get him on a 1-year, $1 million deal. He's a guy that's going to be coming off the bench. As we know, 32 years of age, had a poor season, only a 182 batting average, 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, but in a limited role. But throughout his career, he has a 289 career batting average, 356 on base percentage, 803 slugging, 43 home runs, 182 at-bats. This guy's batting stance is literally off the charts. During his time with the Cardinals, I was like, how the hell is he doing this? And same thing with his glove. It definitely looks a little subpar. He's a big, lengthy guy, I think around 6'6", but he's going to definitely be great in my mind for the Mets. He is a lefty killer in regards to pitching, so I like that add on the bench. A guy that'll play first base, DH if a DH is in place, even though it doesn't seem like it's happening for this upcoming season. Can be toyed in the corner outfield, but if you're trying to prioritize defense, he's not the way to go. I think we can both agree there. But then when you look at Jonathan VR, what a great pickup that was as well. The Mets toyed with getting guys like Kike Hernandez and Marwin Gonzalez this offseason to really get that great versatility guy. They weren't able to land either of them. They both go to Boston because they know they're going to get more at-bats. I understand it. So they get VR when VR very well could have been a starter on at least probably 10 teams in the league, putting it lightly going to the upcoming season. He takes this role with the Mets, a guy that plays both second, third, can play the outfield. He does a lot for you, and short. And when you look at his contract, it's only a 1-year deal, $3.55 million. The 29-year-old had a 232 average, 2 home runs, 15 RBIs, 16 stolen bases, can still steal bags, is only a year removed from stealing 40 bags and having a really strong season with over 20 homers. And throughout his career, he has 259 batting average, a 327 on base percentage, a 727 OPS, 80 home runs, 283 RBIs, and 218 stolen bases. This is a guy with a lot of speed that I love for the Mets. So what are your thoughts on all those moves there? Do you think that is enough for the Mets in regards to their infield depth?
Yeah, I mean, Jose Martinez, I really like. He was a dude in St. Louis who, like, I think you'd probably go find some tweets of mine from the past just talking about how, like, I'm obsessed with him at the plate. Like, I think he's great because all he does is hit. Like, he's absolutely god-awful in the field. No matter where you play him, he's horrendous defensively. He is a DH at the absolute core of it, but obviously we don't have that, and even if we did, he wouldn't be our starter there. But I like his bat a lot. Like a pinch-hitting option, that's fantastic, and we have a ton of lefties in the lineup, so you know people are going to be throwing in those left-handed relievers. He's a great guy to sub in for a guy. And then, you know, Jonathan VR, I'm not as high on just because he is like kind of a low plate discipline guy. And he's not great fundamentally. He's not particularly strong defensively anywhere in the field, specifically in the outfield. He's pretty horrible, but he's a good athlete. So that makes up for some of the, you know, shortcomings there. And he will put the ball in play. He'll at least try to put the ball in play. So as a pinch hit role, as a pinch runner, as a guy who maybe just gets a spot start here and there, you're not going to be upset because, like you said, he would start on many teams right now. But he's not a guy that I'm particularly excited about. I'm just okay with it. In my mind, the way I'm rationalizing it is, okay, last year we had a guy like Billy Hamilton, right, who was on the bench, who was a pinch runner for us. Yep. We got Jonathan VR now, who could basically essentially fill that same spot, but also offers us a bat at the plate and offers us the opportunity to play multiple positions. So it's an upgrade, and that's good. He's a depth piece. He's not here to play every day. He's fine on the bench for me.
Yeah, no, I think that was their exact rationale behind it, because they're like, look, you can go somewhere else, you can be a starter, maybe you be a starter in Cincinnati, where you're more than likely not making the playoffs, not a shot at the Reds. They very well could still have a chance in the Central, but realistically, VR's coming to this team on the bench because he knows it's going to give him a strong chance to win right now, at least have a deep run, hopefully, for their sake. And the guy that, yes, his glove isn't the best, it's not stellar, but that versatility, that speed, that's key. This Mets team has been slow the past couple of years. They have definitely done a complete 180 in regards to this offseason. Their moves really adding speed to this team, not both in the infield but the outfield, and that's what I like about it the most. I think just him off the bench, when you look at this current Mets bench, it's one of the better ones in all of baseball now, which is just telling of how key depth is and how it should be prioritized by any team that's trying to contend for years, not just now but going forward. You have to be the main guy in the infield, that being Mr. Smile himself, the jersey behind me, the frame, everything. Francisco Lindor, what a move this was for the Mets, the blockbuster to really kickstart the offseason. Outside Trevor May and one other player that we'll be touching on soon, everyone was like, all right, when is it going to happen? When's something going to happen? Then as everyone was guessing, Lindor happens out of the blue. I went absolutely berserk in my live stream covering it. Lindor is the man. He's one of the best players in baseball. I think easily top 10 right now, and he just brings so much to the Mets in my mind. A 258 average, 8 home runs, 27 RBIs. Overall numbers though, with 285 career hitter, 138 home runs, 411 RBIs, just under 100 stolen bags at 833 OPS. All-star every year from 2016-2019. He's a 2-time Gold Glover for the AL in 2016-2019, and he's a 2-time Platinum Glove for the AL. I mean, 1 time, I should say, in 2016. What's your initial thoughts on Lindor, and how much of an impact do you expect Mr. Smile to have on this Mets club as soon as day 1 for the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's, you know, an MVP type player, top 10 in the league without a doubt. He's the best shortstop in the league in my eyes, just what he does at the plate and in the field and on the base paths, honestly. The only guy that's even close is Trevor Story right now. And, you know, or Fernando Tatis as well. Those are the top 3 without a doubt, wherever you want to rank them. I just put Lindor there because you can't find many shortstops who switch hit, have the elite glove in the field like him. He beat Andrelton Simmons for Gold Gloves, and that's not easy. I mean, beating Andrelton Simmons anytime in the field is quite the accomplishment, because that guy might make the Hall of Fame possibly, just based on the fact that he's one of the sickest shortstops we've ever seen. Modern day Ozzie Smith, basically. But, you know, Francisco Lindor, you put together 30, or he had 3 seasons in a row, I think, before last year, where he hit 30 plus homers, 40 doubles, and stole like 20 bases or something like that, and played good defense. You don't find that. I know 2020 was a down year. I think people need to take it very, very lightly with a grain of salt. It was a weird season. The Indians had a lot of stuff going on over there. I mean, the whole Mike Clevenger situation, COVID, that was like a big, you know, scandal or whatever. I think Lindor is like a big family guy as well, from what you've been seeing on like Instagram and everything. Like, I think it's really important for him to be in a scenario where he's like very comfortable. And I think right now in New York, he looks like he's super comfortable. I mean, the guy dyed his hair blue. He looks like he's having a great time at spring training. He is going to be an MVP type player. He's going to make such a huge impact, even if his bat is average, which I don't think is going to happen. The impact or the improvement that we have at shortstop defensively, and Jimenez was good, is going to be immense. Like, we got so much stronger up the middle with him, McCann, and then, you know, in the outfield. It's good. I love it. It's really going to help the Mets win a couple more games this year, and hopefully that's going to be what able to push them over the top.
Yeah, exactly. I think him himself, if it was just him, I still would give the Mets a solid grade for the offseason, even with all the other holes they have, because the intent is that you're going to extend this guy long term. Hopefully it happens soon. I think it will. Again, knock on wood, only time will tell. But Lindor brings so much to the Mets between his glove and his switching, and he's a guy that you don't need to have batting leadoff, you know, just to get into hypotheticals in the lineups. Like, he's a guy that, yes, can bat leadoff, but when you look at the power he brings, this guy can hit upwards of 40 bombs. I wouldn't be against him either beating the 3 or the 4 hole, for instance, and having the Nimmos and McNeils of the worlds ahead of him, because he just on the fly, he brings so much. And he also said in his interview, I really wasn't giving my all last season. You know, my preparation wasn't nearly there. Definitely probably in part because of just how crazy of a 2020 short season it was with all the protocols and everything, but also because of the contract to an extent. He knew he was going to get dealt because things were not reaching an agreement on extension. So when you're talking about glove, when you're talking about everything, this is going to help the pitchers so much, might add too. I don't think people seem to realize that enough. When you have Stroh, who's strictly a guy that is a ground ball pitcher, and among others, you're getting Lindor, who even though he's so deep in the infield, he's going to be light years ahead of Rosario. And this is not a shot at Rosie at all, but this is going to help JD with his defense. Should he actually start at third base for them? There's been a lot of uncertainty there. He's going to impact the lineup in more ways than one, and I don't think a lot of people are seeming to realize that. He is going to be the face of the franchise in my mind, as long as he's here long term, and I'm absolutely stoked to see him play his first game with the Mets.
Yeah, there's not really a better guy that you can, build around if you're a New York Mets fan right now that was actually available. Of course, you want Fernando Tatis to Mike Trout, but for guys that you were able to bring in from another team, there's just not a better option that was available, and I love it. I'm just so happy he's a Met. It's crazy.
So let's get to the outfield now, and this was a move, first of all, that I really liked. I didn't expect this to happen. No one did. That being in the blockbuster with Khalil Lee. Benintendi going from the Red Sox to the Royals, and really smart move by the Mets here, adding depth to this prospect pool as well. They trade away one of their pitching prospects that was a 20-something ranked prospect that they acquired from the Jays as part of that Steven Matz deal. They flip him right away. The Red Sox as part of this deal, and in return they get Khalil Lee, who was the 8th ranked prospect for the Royals, for a team that's in a full rebuild, which is like, wow, okay. So you get this guy, he's a speed demon, 22 years of age, had a 264 average in AA, including 8 home runs, 51 RBIs, 53 stolen bags for the outfielder, and in his career has a 256 average, 366 on base percentage, 409 slugging, 775 OPS, 37 home runs, 192 RBIs, and just under 100 stolen bases in his minor league career. Really awesome pickup there. I think that he already is going to bring a lot. As a guy that we may very well even see at some points during the season. I don't think to start the season, but maybe throughout the year. That I wish injuries happen, but they are inevitable. If he does great to start off in AAA, I could see him soon because he's currently on the 40-man. But then you get other depth moves, that being Albert Amora Jr. You know the story with him probably. Ever since the line drive situation, he hasn't been the same player, and it's just a very unfortunate one. But now he's coming back, reuniting with Chili Davis during their time with the Cubs. I think that's going to help his hitting a lot. Really burst on the scene early for the Cubs, but since then hasn't looked great. Signed a 1-year, $1.25 million deal with the Mets to help out with outfield depth and really bring some difference with him and Nimmo, and also in left field as well. A 167 average and just 30 at-bats with the Cubs this past year, but career-wise, a 271 batting average, a 309 on base percentage, a 707 OPS, and had 28 home runs and 134 RBIs for the 26-year-old. So that was another solid move. And then the most recent one, that being in Kevin Pillar, 288 average in the short season, playing time with the Red Sox and the Rockies. Really took advantage of Coors to an extent too. Really had one of his best years, if not his best year on pace, at least offensive wise. Had 6 homers, 26 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, is 798 OPS, and in his career has a 262 average, 82 home runs, 344 RBIs, 88 stolen bases, and 707 OPS. Had a 2-year, $6.5 million. So it can be a 1-year or it can be a 2-year, depending on, because he has a player option after this upcoming season. So what are your initial thoughts on all of them? Do you like these depth moves for the Mets? Do you think it's enough in the outfield for them?
Yeah, I think the best one definitely has to be Khalil Lee. He's just a guy who could have some really big upside for the Mets. Really good athlete. As you said, stealing like 50 bags in the minors is just impressive no matter how you slice it. And he does have some power potential. Like he's been playing in, I don't know what league it was, but I think he was playing in one of the Latin American winter leagues. And he was just crushing baseballs. I mean, I saw some highlights of him. I'm like, yeah, he's got a big swing. So he's a swing and miss guy a little bit. Definitely needs to work on, making a little contact more. But it's funny. He was very similar to what the Royals also traded away with Franchi Cordero, a guy who runs well, throws hard, and hits the ball really hard. Just got to do it all a little more consistently. But we flipped a 20-something prospect for Khalil Lee, who is a top 10 guy in our organization. Just a smart move. That's stuff that move would not have even been on the Mets radar in the prior, regime. There was just no way they would have even thought of that. And they got their farm system stronger by doing nothing, basically. So I love that move. I think it's really good. Kevin Pillar and Aaron Altair, I just don't put too much stock in it because they're the backups. I know a lot of people were, had really big opinions on Kevin Pillar, even so much so of people being like, oh, is he going to start over Nimmo in center? I'm like, guys, what are we talking about here? Hold on, let's pump the brakes. Nimmo's one of the best offensive outfielders in baseball. Kevin Pillar is the fourth outfielder, a great fourth outfielder, but he is not going to be getting major playing time. And Almora is the fifth guy, almost the insurance policy. I like him more than Guillermo Heredia, who we got rid of, yesterday? I think we DFA'd him. So I'm cool with these moves. Again, depth. You look at the teams from 2015, you look at the teams from 2006, you got guys that filled in when you needed them, and this is what they're going to be. I'm cool with all the moves. It's going to be nice. I think you're going to see a lot of defensive replacements late in games for the Mets, and Pillar and Almora are going to be part of those. I think a lot of Mets fans are going to take a little bit of time of getting used to it. We saw it, and I know we don't want to talk about Mickey Callaway too much, or even, last year, but we saw it every year at the start, and that's when the Mets have been playing their best, was at the start of the year, right? We saw them being really smart, being really situational, making the defensive switches. And then something kind of happens in May where the Mets just stop. I think that's going to be over. I think you're going to see, I don't want to call it Rays baseball because we're not going to go, pulling our best starter in the fifth inning here in the World Series. But I think you're going to see a lot more smarter moves being made, a lot of moves that maybe Mets fans aren't happy about. Like you just mentioned, Pete Alonso being pulled late in the game. I could see some fans being like, why are we taking out our best hitter, right? Why would we do that? Well, defensively, Dom at first is the move. You get Pillar in at Alonso's spot, you put him in center, you move Nimmo to left. That's a team that can lock it down late innings in the game. And that's the kind of stuff that you need to do in order to win those close games sometimes. I mean, how many times as Mets fans have we seen an error come back to bite us? Or maybe there's a ball in the gap that doesn't get cut off and it turns a single into a double. Those are the little things that are going to separate the Mets from being a team that's maybe fighting for a wild card spot to maybe fighting for the NL East division title. So they're all good moves around the board, like solid moves. Great job by Sandy and, Zach Scott this offseason.
Again, this has been a very hectic one with a lot of highs and lows, but I'm just so proud of this organization that they were able to do as many, not just key moves to help the roster right now, but depth moves to help them going forward in the future as well. As their main acquisitions, you look at the catchers. This is arguably my favorite one outside of Lindor because I have been a huge James McCann fan since he started out in Southside. I picked the White Sox as a team to start following in the AL because I didn't have one until like 2 years ago when him and Moncada went there. I'm like, all right, this team looks like that they're going to really start to build for their future. Don't talk about Tatis, that's a different story. But McCann signs a 4-year, $40.6 million deal. We don't get Real Muto, but we get a guy with right around 1,000 less innings on his knees, still in the prime of his career, had a 289 average, 7 home runs, 15 RBIs, and had an 896 OPS. And throughout his career is a 249 hitter, 65 home runs, 252 RBIs, a 7 stolen bases, and a 694 OPS. He's done so much in just a short period of time the past 2 years, splitting time with Yasmani Grandal. I think personally that the White Sox are going to regret losing him because he was Giolito's guy. For sure, there was a 9-day difference in regards to numbers, and as we know as Mets fans, with Thor between him and either Ramos or Nito, we know there's a drastic difference in regards to having a defensive first catcher, but McCann is probably the most well-rounded guy that I could think of the Mets have had really since a guy either like Loduca and then Piazza. Like, that is how good he is. I think that he's still right in the prime of his career. His bat, you don't need really anything out of, but you're going to get stuff out of his bat. He's going to make this lineup so much deeper, and defensively, I just love who he is because I don't know if you recall, but one of his first presser with the Mets was, yes, he doesn't use the cheat sheet on his arm because he wants to make sure that he has everyone memorized so much that he doesn't have to get to the point of worrying about last second who he's going up against. So what are your thoughts on James McCann? Do you like him? Do you think he was a better fit over JT? Let me hear it.
Yeah, so I mean, JT obviously is the better catcher right now. There's no doubt. Like, he's the number one, or if not number 2 catcher, in Major League Baseball. He would have been the best guy for us. But I think getting McCann is going to end up being a better move for the Mets. Was he going to play better than JT? I don't think so. JT's not slowing down anytime soon. But I think his contract, which a lot of people say we overpaid for him, the 4 for 40, if Real Muto is then only $100 million. At the end of the day, I don't really think it's actually that bad. I still think $10 million a year for him is going to be pretty cheap. Like you said, he's in his prime. He has 1,000 less innings on his knees. That's huge. That's really big, especially for the catching position. He's shown that the bat has woken up. He wasn't a hitter in Detroit, came to Chicago, started to hit. And I think it's going to stick. The way he's been hitting, his whole approach, completely different, better hitter. And then defensively, he's been a little inconsistent, but last year he made a very, very conscious effort to be better defensively. And what do you know? His numbers improved. And from what the pitchers have been saying, saying they love throwing to him. They absolutely love throwing to him. And that's just something you can't find in the numbers, is the comfort or comfortability. Is that even the right word that pitchers get with a guy? I mean, I know that there are certain pitchers that really like throwing to me, that would prefer to throw to guys instead of me, or would prefer to throw to me. That does make a difference. If you get a pitcher who's comfortable with their catcher, maybe they can spin that curveball in the dirt a little bit more. Maybe they can hit that spot. They feel a little bit more comfortable. Whereas, not to take shots at Yankees, but you have a guy like Gary Sanchez. Garrett Cole doesn't want to throw to him. There's a reason. Garrett Cole feels more comfortable pitching to Kyle Higashioka. That's when he's going to be at his best. So if he can make our pitchers more comfortable, if he can frame better than Wilson Ramos, which shouldn't be that tough, and if he can hit better than him last year, we got an improvement right off the rip. And I don't think it's going to be that tough. And he's a good catcher. I mean, top 10 in my eyes. I love the move of James McCann. I really think it's good. I'm a huge James McCann guy, just like you.
Yeah, I think he's going to bring so much more than what we kind of realized, almost similar to Lindor to an extent. Yes, we know a lot about Lindor and what he's going to benefit with pitchers, but McCann is really no different. I think he's going to be a crucial part to guys like Stroh really having a dominant year, something that us Mets fans have been hoping for since we acquired him. And same thing with Thor when he comes back from Tommy. I think he's going to fall in love with him. Even with Nito there, it's going to be nice actually having a balance where you don't have to worry about having a one guy as your main catcher. And DeGrom, we all know how good he is. So just making you think of him having a defensive catcher to the likes of McCann now, how much better could that actually impact DeGoat himself? It really does make you wonder about all these guys and their control, and I love every single thing about that.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me, because I'm obsessed with catching, so that's definitely the position I know the best, is that, watching Wilson Ramos last year, he's older, his knees are bad. He was a beast for us in 2019, and 2020 it just wasn't there. That's fine, it happens.
Yep.
I'm not going to hold it against the guy. But the big thing with him is, on a low pitch, and I'll just show you real quickly, you're kind of supposed to get the thumb under it, beat it there, stick it, keep it at the knees. Ramos did a big thing where he got it at the knees and then his arm would go down and he would dunk it. And I think the Mets are losing a lot of strike calls like that, which can make a huge difference. If McCann is able, from what I've seen, he has been able to stick that low pitch, and we know how good our pitchers are, especially DeGrom living at the knees. We might see the strikeout numbers go up for the Mets here just because they're able to steal a couple more strikes. We've had a horrendous framer behind the plate last couple of years. James McCann's a little bit better. That's going to be huge.
Yeah, great point. I love how you brought that up in regards to the strike zone. Again, defensively, just light years ahead of what the Mets have had in recent years, to put it lightly. But, we hit all the nails on the head. Again, there's a lot of different players the Mets have acquired. We're not going to go over all the minor ones, but I just wanted to add to that outside of this, when the non-roster invites come in, we had the legend himself, Jerry Blevins, back with the Mets. Thought that was great. SNY analyst. He's like, we'll give it one last ride. I think that's great. On a one-year deal, you bring in Jared Eichhoff, who my buddy, who's a diehard Phillies fan, used to preach that this guy was the next big thing. So in that case, then we are really set big time with this rotation. Then you get others like Mike Montgomery adding more depth as well. Tommy Hunter, Jose Peraza, who I didn't even realize at first the Mets acquired, was just a year removed from having a decent season at least. And I think is a guy that is going to bring more depth and short and just in this infield should he get any playing time at the majors this year. And Malik Smith, when you're talking about defense and speed, the bat hasn't been there, but maybe he can get some actual opportunities. And Brandon Drury at third base was more so of Jared Porter's guy, I would say, mainly because of their time during Arizona. So now that that's out of the picture, I'm not sure what his future holds. But again, more non-roster invites when a lot of these guys would be far more competing for a job in the league elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I even forgot about some of the guys you mentioned. Like, how nice is it that these non-roster invites that you're mentioning are guys that have had major league time, and not only major league time, but have had success at the major league level at some point in their career, where in the past, our non-roster invites would be a guy that, is a 32-year-old guy who's had a career in AAA and is waiting for a shot. We've got guys that have been here that have done it, and those are guys who are willing to wait in the minors with us. Like, Jose Peraza, I think, is just like really, really good pickup. I like that one a lot. Yeah, he's like super young still too. I think he's like 27
that one went completely under the radar. As I was doing my research, I was like, when the hell did that happen? I honestly had no clue. So just really, really strong depth moves for the Mets. I'm really excited to see their AAA team if we're able to be in attendance at all for them this year. If so, I'll be there because they'll actually be a powerhouse from what we're seeing. I would like to hear your grade and why for the Mets in their offseason.
So here's a little Mets bias here. I'm going to give the Mets an A. I'm not going to give them an A plus. That's for teams that had the best offseason without a doubt. But I'm going to give the Mets an A. If you told Mets fans before the season that these were the names that they'd be picking up, and again, don't include like that we missed out on Bauer, Real Muto, Springer. Those shouldn't have an impact on the quality of the players that we brought in because we got Francisco Lindor, Carlos Carrasco, Trevor May, James McCann. We addressed 4 positions that we needed to improve, and we made an improvement. I know we didn't necessarily get the guys that people wanted. We didn't get the big flashy names, but here's the thing. The guys we brought in are amazing. And also we got Francisco Lindor, the best shortstop in baseball. I mean,
yeah, he's kind of good. I don't know.
Like what? He's okay, right? He's decent. Like, I don't know. Maybe kids are playing MLB The Show too much now because he's not great in that game, but this guy is so ridiculously good. Watch how bad the Indians are this year losing him. Watch how good the Mets are going to be getting him, improving. I have to give the Mets an A. Just without a doubt, they had a fantastic offseason.
I'm glad you said that because I 100% agree. I give them an A solid. I will give them maybe the slightest asterisk in regards to, you know, not landing any big name free agent, mainly just because even though the Mets have had such a phenomenal offseason, that's why they're getting this A, there were a lot of people that were at least under certain impressions that didn't come to fruition. You know, if they landed at least one of them, then I think it'd be a different story. I'm perfectly fine with them not landing any of them, but it was just how it all kind of transpired. There, unfortunately, a lot of things were out of their hands in regards to the Porter situation, in regards to Callaway, in regards to other people in the organization. Steve Cohen going off of Twitter. Now he's back on Twitter, by the way. He's activated, so things are rolling big time. But overall, it was just a tremendous offseason for them. Even if they didn't land any of those big names, I am much more in favor of them doing the smart moves that are going to help them both short-term and long-term. Springer, they didn't want to go 6 years. They felt that would have hurt them after a couple years and being more of a corner outfielder. And I understand it. And same thing with Bauer. Bauer literally had as good of an offer, if not better. Third year was better. You know this. You talked to him. Yeah. Third year was better. So it is what it is.
Yeah, it literally just came down to he liked the Dodgers team better, which is fine because the Dodgers are a better team on paper. And he liked the offer more. He liked the contract structure better. That's completely fine. Like, the Mets were the other team. The Mets offered him $40 million a year.
Stupid.
And there just happened to be another team that also did the same that is also better on paper. You can't blame the guy. I know Mets fans are mad at him, and that's fine. Be mad at him all you want. But, like, the Mets tried. The Mets haven't been trying for the last 5 off seasons since they made the World Series.
Exactly.
I can't possibly be upset with what happened this offseason. I'm so pumped.
Yeah, no, it wasn't their fault whatsoever. You can maybe give them a gripe for not going after certain guys enough, or maybe in regards to, you know, Brad Hand and Rosenthal, where they really are so committed with Diaz that it was a closer thing, but it's not a big deal in my mind. It really isn't. I like what they're doing. I love the debt moves. I think that's going to be crucial for them going forward. And it doesn't take away any possibilities of either early or mid-season trades that I think at this rate right now very well could be happening. So we'll be picking up those discussions soon. So seriously, thank you again, Mark. It really does mean a lot. This was an awesome discussion. Thank you all so much who chimed in. Let us know where we can find you, and then I'll get you out of here.
Yep, we're GiraffeNeckMarc on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, uploading all baseball stuff, not just Mets, but we talk all baseball on the channel. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, find me there, GiraffeNeckMarc.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thank you so much again, Mark. Help this guy get to 200K subs already. What are you doing? If you haven't subscribed to the man already, if you like Mets content and overall baseball content, looking no further. Thank you again, Mark, and let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets, baby.